How's it going, everybody, and welcome to the Push Start E3 recap. We are now pretty much done with E3. We had our events from the Summer Game Kickoff, which was pre-E3, through all the official E3 shenanigans like the Ubisoft Forward, Microsoft Bethesda presentation, Nintendo Direct, the Square Enix presentation, and a few others to be had, but those were kind of the main ones. So, what is the purpose of this video? It is to go over E3 as a whole, talk about what I saw that kind of piqued my interest, and at the end, maybe we'll dole out some awards that nobody cares about, that don't mean anything, but hey, it's like, whose line is it anyways? The points don't matter and everything is made up. Why don't we get right into it? So before we get into covering the event, let's talk about what happened in the collapse of this channel during E3 and just kind of get it out of the way. So initially the plan was to cover the Summer Games Fest kickoff, which we did a full recap of it, the Ubisoft Forward, which we did, full recap of it, but also the Microsoft Bethesda conference, which didn't appear on the channel, the Square Enix conference, which didn't appear on the channel, and today's Nintendo Direct, which is not appearing on the channel. So what went wrong? Well, it was kind of a combination of a lot of things. The first two went pretty much no problems. The Ubisoft did have an issue. Premiere did not want to export the file, which led to it being uploaded, I think maybe around midnight that night. That's not where I wanted to have it. Microsoft and Bethesda, we're all ready to go. I had a guest. My wife joined me because she's an Xbox player and wanted to see her first E3 press conference. We recorded it. Seemingly everything went fine. No issues. I go to grab the file to put into Premiere, and all of the audio from the presentation is missing. I could have tried to grab just a dump of the presentation to mix it, but the audio had issues on our end when I was doing that, and it just didn't come out. And then, you know, the Square Enix conference was pretty much 30 minutes later, give or take, and my voice was completely shot. I actually filmed a completely non-video game related video last night, and I could still hear it in that video that my voice was having trouble recovering. So I just decided, you know what, it's just not going to happen. I'm not going to bother. So lesson learned. I can tell you from this point going forward, unless it's like a Nintendo Direct or a Sony State of Play, something like that, I'll probably do the same thing, like record my reactions, upload it to YouTube, but for everything else, it's going to be live streamed. Live streaming it will just really, really simplify things. It'll allow me to get footage onto the channel way faster, because the way it stood was everything was going to be like a day behind anyways, so that's just not what I want to have. I decided to just kind of cut rope today and decide, you know what, I'm just going to do this recap thing, lesson learned, and we'll move forward. So why don't we finally now, with all that out of the way, get into all the games we saw over the past few days. So for the Summer Games Fest kickoff and the Ubisoft Forward, which are up on the channel, I am going to kind of breeze through them. We saw some pretty cool stuff out of both. I've got the list in front of me for all of the conferences I'm going to be talking about. So let's talk about just a few of the highlights of the Summer Games Fest kickoff. There's a few weird things in there. The Death Stranding director's cut. I mean, Kojima had apparently total control of the game, so I'm not sure what he cut. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that self-edits all that well, so who knows what that ends up being. One of the bigger surprises was the Salt and Sacrifice announcement. There was a sequel to Salt and Sanctuary. We finally got the official word on 2 Point Campus, which is coming out of the people that made 2 Point Hospital, a game that I am personally very, very excited for. And then, you know, we saw Far Cry 6, which we knew we were going to see in some fashion, if not at the Summer Games Fest kickoff, then we were going to see it at the Ubisoft event. Also saw it at the Microsoft conference as well. We saw Back 4 Blood, and then at the end, obviously, Elden Ring. I have my thoughts on Elden Ring. I'm not a Souls player. Those games don't appeal to me. From an outside perspective looking in, this game doesn't look anything different to me than any of those other games do. After the trailer came out, there were some details going a little bit further in depth from IGN that actually showed some gameplay differences and some things that they are doing to kind of differentiate from the other games. But I hate to say it, I'm not trying to be negative about the game. It's not just because I don't like it. It's not that I don't like the games, I'm just not interested in them. I really think that if I took that trailer and stripped away the Elden Ring branding and said, hey, this is Dark Souls 4, a lot of people would have been like, I'm surprised Dark Souls 4 is coming out before Elden Ring. There just wasn't a lot to really differentiate it, but man, people are hyped about that game, and I hope it lives up to all their expectations. All right, let's move to Ubisoft, which we saw some cool stuff. Rainbow Six Extraction definitely kind of took me by surprise. I didn't realize that there was an alien element going in. I don't know if that was in the marketing beforehand. That game's marketing kind of got delayed a little bit. They changed the name of the game, so kind of in my brain, it all kind of got scrambled together, but it looked good. I don't know if I'm going to play it because I typically don't play co-op games. I don't really have anybody else to play games with, at least that want to play the games that I'm interested in. Maybe it's something I can convince my wife to play with me, but it did look pretty good. I could see that game being a big hit. You know, Rainbow Six Siege kind of built up from, you know, it was well received when it came out, but it certainly wasn't immediately at the level that it is at now. So I think that there's probably some people that are a little intimidated about getting into Siege, but with a new Rainbow Six coming out, it's a perfect opportunity for everybody to kind of jump into it, so I could see it being a big hit for Ubisoft. All right, moving on past that, Riders Republic, from the makers of Steep, that was definitely the surprise of the show for me. That game is defined to me by one word, and that is potential. There is a ton of potential in that game. The, you know, crazy, like, looked like 60 different racers at a time through the jetpack suits or wing gliders, whatever exactly they are. The first-person downhill BMX stuff looked insane. That game, if they really pull it off, that could be a sleeper hit for Ubisoft, no doubt about it. I was really digging the way that looked. And then Far Cry 6 and Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope were kind of two other ones. Unfortunately, the leak happened with Sparks of Hope. Nintendo leaked it themselves, but it's awesome to see that that game is getting a sequel. It looks really nice. They're changing up the gameplay a little bit. And then Far Cry 6, we kind of all know what we're getting with that. They did show off some DLC plans, bringing back former villains from Far Cry 3, 4, and 5. It looks like some type of horror-based thing. It's kind of like maybe they're Blood Dragon, but instead of doing that like 80s action movie synthwave-inspired outrun thing, they're going in a totally different direction, and it looked almost like psychological horror. And then at the end of the conference, we saw the Avatar game. I've never seen the film. I have zero interest in it whatsoever. The game looked... I mean, you didn't see too much of it. There wasn't any like actual gameplay of it. I guess we'll just have to see what happens with that one, but yeah, not anything really on my radar. So let's push forward into Microsoft, which is now the first thing that I didn't get to cover on the channel already. Starfield was finally announced coming out next year. I really like the way that they showed the release date by having it being like the coordinates in the ship. Nice little touch. Obviously, just at the end of the trailer, they put the text on screen saying it's coming out 11/11 next year, 11 years after Skyrim, which of course had that famous 11/11/11 release date. They're talking this game up a lot. They're saying that it's much more in depth, much more, I don't know if I want to use the word hardcore because it has a certain connotation to it, but maybe just a little bit more of an RPG experience than you would get from like a Fallout or a Elder Scrolls game, and that sounds good to me. You know, those first-person RPGs were something that I never could really get into. I played Skyrim, I liked Skyrim, but I could never get into the Fallout games, and actually, oddly enough, the Outer Worlds, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that was the first one of those games that I played to completion and really enjoyed. I had the same issue going into Cyberpunk, where I was like, I don't know if I want to play this first-person RPG, but I was able to get through it. So I think I'm now at that point in my tastes being developed and changed over the years that I'm kind of ready for this. So yeah, count me in for being excited for Starfield. Stalker 2, I mean, I think that kind of stole the show. That thing looked amazing. It looked absolutely incredible. Obviously, we're seeing footage running on a very high-end PC, but I'm sure they're going to be able to do ray tracing in that. I'm hoping that maybe they can get some type of mode that blends the ray tracing with the 60 frames a second. Maybe it only goes to 1080p instead of 4K, but I'm sure that game is going to have plenty of graphical options in it, and it looks really, really stellar. Saw some other things, more Back 4 Blood, the announcement of Contraband coming from Avalanche Studios, update to Sea of Thieves, some stuff coming to Game Pass. We saw some Battlefield 2042 stuff, and Battlefield, that is an very impressive first look at that game. I don't want to dig too much into Battlefield because I did cover on last week's episode of Push Start to Listen, so watch that if you want to get my thoughts on the trailer. Saw 12 Minutes, which is a game I've been waiting for a long time, finally coming out. Psychonauts 2 got a release date. More stuff coming for Fallout 76. Party Animals, which is looks very much like Gang Beasts. Hades is coming. Some Halo Infinite stuff. Diablo 2 Resurrected, that coming to consoles is super cool because Diablo 3 played incredibly well on consoles. They actually altered the control scheme a little bit, and it got to the point where I preferred to play it on console than on PC, and that's something, at least with Diablo, I never thought was going to be a possibility. Somerville looked great. Very cool premise, very nice trailer. I definitely suggest you go and check that out. Atomic Heart, the hell is that? That looks like a Russian fever dream. I've heard it's being described as a Russian Fallout. That game looks bananas. It is all over the place. If you want to see like the weirdest trailer you possibly can out of everything that was announced at E3, go watch the Atomic Heart trailer. Replaced, that had a very cool kind of Blade Runner, cyberpunk type setting. Looked really nice, side-scrolling game, but very nice lighting. Can't quite tell exactly how the game plays from the trailer. Let's see, some updates to Among Us. They announced the Outer Worlds 2 with one of the best trailers. It was a very self-referential, humorous trailer that I really appreciated. I loved that game. It wasn't perfect, and I would even go so far as to say it wasn't an amazing game. I really liked it. I think I probably liked it more than most people that played it. It was my favorite game that came out the year that it came out. I think that they probably learned some lessons making the first one, and I fully anticipate the second one to just be like both barrels, pedal to the metal, and that thing could be a serious contender for one of the best releases of that year when it comes out. And then for me personally, the show stealer, aside from Stalker 2, was Forza Horizon 5, heading to Mexico. It looks incredible. I mean, it looks amazing. I liked Forza Horizon 4. I wasn't a huge fan of the setting. It was a little same-ish to me. Getting down to Mexico, you've got deserts, you've got rainforest, you've got cities, you've got a little bit more variety. The graphics in that look insane, and seeing that was like, okay, I think we're probably gonna have to get one of the new Xboxes. I'm sure I can play it on PC just fine, but regardless, I want to play it one way or another. And then the show ended with Redfall, something new from Arcane. Not a big fan of what appears to be a kind of Left 4 Dead co-op style vampire shooter. Just not for me, but some people seem to be super excited about it. All right, next up was the Square Enix conference, and I wasn't quite sure what we were going to get out of it, essentially. Let's run through some stuff quick before we get into kind of what was the meat of the conference. We saw Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, one of the weirdest trailers. It's just a lot of chaos. Chaos is here. I need to kill Chaos. Chaos is coming for us. Chaos is over there. I think that guy's Chaos. I could taste it in my bones. I could feel the darkness on my skin. Chaos is here. We need to kill Chaos. Chaos is everywhere. If you don't understand what I'm saying, go watch the trailer. We saw more stuff for Life is Strange, which was already announced. A lot of Final Fantasy stuff in this, some mobile Final Fantasy stuff in this, mobile Nier, mobile Hitman, because they did retain the rights to the mobile stuff for Hitman when IO Interactive broke off with it. Updates and expansion for Marvel's Avengers, Legend of Mana Remaster, and the Pixel remasters of Final Fantasy 1 through 6. Final Fantasy 6 is an incredible game. Final Fantasy 3 is an incredible game. Here's the problem. They didn't show what it looked like. And that's what I think really matters for something like that. You kind of got to show what that thing looks like and not just put the logos that we've all seen a million times up on the screen. Here's kind of the main event of Square Enix, and the game that most surprised me out of the entire weekend, and that was Guardians of the Galaxy. I didn't know that they were working on it. About a week ago, I saw a report online saying like, hey, we think this is probably going to get talked about. They had a team that's been working on it for a while. Definitely didn't expect it to come out this year. Definitely didn't expect it to look as good as it does. I'm not a Marvel fan. I grew up reading Marvel comic books, but in terms of like the modern Marvel movies, I couldn't care less. They just don't interest me. I did see the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and I thought it was pretty good, but that was mostly because I'm a sucker for Dave Bautista, and I try to watch everything that he's in just because I like supporting the guy. But this game looked fantastic. It's not using the movie license, so no Chris Pratt, no Bautista. But I think they look mostly okay. Star-Lord looks a little douchey, but for the most part, it looks okay. But I came away from this like super excited to play this game, and I was very surprised. This is in contention for the best thing I saw all E3. I am firmly in the camp of I am praying that this is good. It looks good. I mean, they showed extensive gameplay, and I'm sure we're going to get more in the coming months because it's coming out, I think in October is when it's coming out, so it's not that far away. Super, super excited about it. All right, the last big E3 event, I guess you could say, was this morning's Nintendo Direct. No, I'm filming this last night, so this morning for me. I didn't know what to expect. I think most people were hoping that they were going to announce the new Switch. That didn't happen. Who knows when they announce it? Who knows if they announce that? Maybe it's closer to holiday. I don't know. But they announced a fair amount of things. It started off with Smash Brothers. Of course it did. Kazuya from Tekken is coming to Smash Brothers. Showed Life is Strange, which we've already seen. Guardians of the Galaxy, which we've already seen. Two Point Campus, which we've already seen. They showed a remake of Super Monkey Ball called Banana Mania. Mario Party kind of greatest hits called Mario Party Superstars. Bunch of Mario Party maps and levels combined into one thing. Saw Just Dance 2022, which we saw at the Microsoft conference. Cruisin' Blast, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, Mario Golf, which I believe is coming out next week, which looks absolutely fantastic. I went on a pure rant a few weeks ago on Push Start to Listen about Nintendo sports games and how I hope that they return to form, and I hope that Mario Golf is leading that charge. Monster Hunter Stories 2, a new WarioWare, which is awesome. I never played any of the original ones, but I always kind of wanted to. I just think at the time I didn't have anything that they were on, and it just kind of never happened for me. That game's got a great sense of style. Looks like it's got a pretty good sense of humor. Looks like they're changing the formula up a little bit, though I couldn't quite tell because I hadn't played the original ones, but from seeing the reaction online today, it looks like they are making some changes. We saw Shin Megami Tensei 5, which looks pretty good if you're looking for a game of that style. Danganronpa Collection is coming. I played the original one on the Vita and actually quite enjoyed it, but something I didn't really keep up with, and I don't know if I see myself going back to it these days. Fatal Frame, the remake of the Wii U one, if I remember right. They showed Doom Eternal footage. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 coming. Showed more of Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. And that they're remaking Advance Wars 1 and 2 in the Reboot Camp, which I think that's a pretty clever title for it. Advance Wars are great games. They were fantastic titles on the Game Boy Advance, and I think that it's a game that a lot of people probably wish they could have played back then, and now they'll have an opportunity to. They ended the show with Hyrule Warriors, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, and then a trailer for the sequel to Breath of the Wild 2. I'm not a Zelda fan. Those games don't appeal to me, but I can certainly respect and understand the legacy that they have, and that they are probably, next to Mario, the biggest source of, you know, kind of a wild fan base for Nintendo fans. But there was something that happened a little bit sooner in the conference that I wanted to talk about at the end here, because for me, it was the thing that I was most pleased with, and that's Metroid Dread. They announced it as Metroid 5, but by the end of the trailer, they had the name for it. It is the final chapter of the Samus Metroid saga. It looks awesome. It looks incredible. I know a lot of people are still waiting for a new Metroid Prime, which they did reference. That game has kind of been start-stop in development for a while. I think at one point they completely started from fresh, so who knows when that's going to come out, maybe next year. But Metroid Dread looked great, and for me, that was the thing from Nintendo's conference that I was most excited about. And now that we've recapped the conferences, let's hand out a couple of awards. These are the official Push Start memorial. No one will ever see this, and nothing really matters when it comes to just critiquing game trailer awards. I've got 3 categories, so not a lot to get through, but the first one is essentially the what the hell did I just watch trailer award, and I've got 3 nominees for it. The Final Fantasy Origin trailer, that's the Chaos trailer, the Babylon's Fall trailer, which just was kind of weird, also another Square Enix presentation, the choice of music, it was just kind of taking itself a little bit too serious, and then the winner of the category by far was the Atomic Heart trailer. I cannot express to you enough that you need to go out and watch it. It is truly bizarre. I love that people are making games like this. I don't know if it's something that I want to play. It might not be something that you want to play, but it looked pretty damn out there. Then I grabbed a couple of things for biggest surprise of E3. I've got 4 nominees. Metroid Dread, to me, that kind of came out of left field, especially now that they've announced that it is wrapping up the Metroid Samus kind of saga, which is weird because Metroid Prime is still coming out. Starfield getting the release date, showing that it's happening sooner than we perhaps thought. Elden Ring getting the release date, I think a lot of people thought that that was never going to happen. And then just kind of a personal one on here for me, and that's the Metal Slug Tactics trailer that was at the Summer Games Fest showcase. Just something, again, out of left field that I really didn't expect to see. The one that I'm going to go with is Elden Ring getting the release date. It's not for me, but it made so many people happy. I think it was a surprise that they all knew had a very high chance of happening, but maybe there was a part of you that was like, oh, it's not going to happen, right? We're going to get like another big event where we get no news. I've been in that boat before where you're anticipating a game, you're really looking forward to it, and it's just kind of radio silence for so long. So in honor of everybody that loves that game and loves that style of game, I figured I'd give it biggest surprise. And then I figured I'd wrap it up with a traditional best of show, and that's just kind of like the thing that I was most excited about coming out of E3. Here is the list of nominees: Metroid Dread, Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope, Far Cry 6, Forza Horizon 5, Guardians of the Galaxy, Stalker 2, Battlefield 2042, and I'm going to be giving it to Guardians of the Galaxy. Really close behind that was Forza Horizon 5, as that game just looks truly incredible. But Guardians just really snapped my attention right to the screen when that came on. I was not expecting it at all. It's not a property that I have a ton of love for, but man, they are doing something right with that game. I hope it's good. I know Marvel Avengers was a huge disappointment for a lot of people, but I think some of that maybe had to do with the fact that it was a game as a service, and they're very upfront that Guardians of the Galaxy is a single-player, story-driven experience, which just kind of increased my anticipation tenfold for it. That brings us to an end of the crazy E3 news. We're not quite done as the summer continues. We're still going to get an EA event, which I believe is next month. I'm sure Sony's got something for us at some point, so I'm sure we'll have more to talk about as the summer presses on. But all in all, I think E3 this year did the best that they possibly could. A lot of studios are feeling it this year more so than last year because of COVID taking away essentially a year of development in some cases. A lot of people were very handicapped last year, not being able to get up to full production. So I was anticipating not seeing a ton of amazing things this year. But not only did we get some great games shown at E3 this year, but we also got great games that have release dates of 2021. Not all of these were things that we're going to have to wait for. I know some people are probably a little worried about this holiday season. There's obviously the worry of, am I still going to be able to get a PS5 and an Xbox Series X? Is that going to be a possibility? And if I do, is there going to be anything for me to play on it? I can't answer the question about if you're going to get a new system. But I can answer the question that it does look like we are going to have some great stuff to play, and not just on one platform or not just from one publisher. It's kind of across the board, something for everybody this year. And I think that that's always nice to say. I don't think there was a true blockbuster, jaw-dropping moment for E3 this year. Maybe there was for other people, with Elden Ring and the Breath of the Wild sequel, just not for me. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't excited about E3. That doesn't mean that I loved E3. There were a ton of absolutely fantastic things that I saw this year, and I'll leave you on this. So here are some things that got announced that were not at the conferences that we covered. Alfred Hitchcock Vertigo. I'm not quite sure what that is, how closely it's going to be related to the movie that is, one of Hitchcock's classics, but the trailer was intriguing. Road 96, I'm pretty much sold on that game. Check out that trailer. Procedurally generated road trip, and it looks like you can kind of get up to no good during it. Axiom Verge 2, the first game I think was kind of a cult hit, and at this point a lot of people were really excited to see the next one, and he's going in a totally different direction with this one. It's definitely not a copy and paste of the first game. Totally different direction, looks really cool. And then Unmetal, which is kind of an NES style Metal Gear Solid, I want to say parody, but it's definitely kind of like the spoof version of it, maybe. When you saw those, like a Naked Gun movie, kind of. And then Harold Halibut, which, for visual style, 100% the coolest looking game that I saw all E3. It's claymation style, and they used actual real claymation animation while making the game, but mixed it with face tracking to kind of make sure the facial animations were on par with other games. It doesn't look entirely claymated, but it looks absolutely incredible. So, all that being said, thank you for joining me for this recap. Leave a comment down below with what your favorite moment for this year's E3 was, and we'll see you again throughout the summer as Push Start will cover all of the major game announcements this year and every year in the future. Take it easy, everybody.